I got my truck built. I guess I need a crew to go with it. Better start painting. Find out more right here on Gary's Stuff. Hi there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. So today I am painting the crew figures that come with the G7107 truck set, the US Infantry Patrol from ICM in 1/35th scale. Now if you want to see how the truck is put together, there's already a video about that. And I will be putting the whole lot into a diorama that I'm building. Keep your eye out on the channel for when that pops up. The best way to do that would be to subscribe and hit the bell, because then you get notified of all my future content as it's released. And of course, anything you see that you like on the videos here, please do give it the imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. And if you'd like to support the channel in a bit more concrete way, you can do that through super thanks, by becoming a channel member, or indeed by using any of my online partner programs. Now, for the sake of transparency, this kit was sent to me as a free review sample by the very kind people at ICM. However, they've not asked me to say anything in particular. All they want from me is a full and honest review, and that is what you and they are going to get. So let's make a start on the figures for the G7107 US Infantry Patrol set in 1/35th scale from ICM. Okay, so we're going to start with the figures, and the first thing we've got to do for each one is clean off all these seam lines here. They won't take long to do because they're not very high, but I'm using a 320 grit first just to knock the seam line down, and then a 1200 grit to smooth off the edges. But I don't want to go too harsh, because I don't want to lose some of the sort of crispness of some of the folds that are here. I don't want to lose any sort of detail if I can help it. But we just need to make sure those seams are off. You can sort of scrape it a bit really with a scalpel or something as well, like you would for metal. But this seems to work best for me for plastic figures. You can use the edge of the sanding stick to sort of help redefine any bits that we lose from sanding. Like we're going to lose a tiny bit of definition here, because the seam goes over this hump in the top of the boot where the trousers are tucked into the top of the boot there. And there's a couple of really quite strong folds, and we'll just use the edge of the sanding stick to help pick those back out again. And just smooth them over with a 1200 grit. Wouldn't know they were ever there to begin with. And when everything is nicely sanded down and ready, you can start connecting the body together. Start with joining the legs, then legs to torso, and just work your way around the rest of the body. This figure here has the hands are supposed to be for slung rifles. It's got his rifle slung and his hands are over the strap. Of course, the strap's not here, so what I'm going to do is just make a strap that goes from the swivel here across to his hands, and then from the butt swivel point, which is about there, up to his hands, a separate piece rather than all in one go. What I'm going to use is just a bit of foil, bend it over at the end for where it would go through the swivel. Yeah, so essentially it'll go over like that, and then down to his hands down there, and at the bottom end it will go sort of like that I'll show you when it's done anyway. So that's what we end up with, just like a little loop here on the swivel where the swivel position is, and then it goes over here under the hand here, then the other side out from under the hand to the butt swivel point here, again little looped over. And it's just a bit of foil cut from the top of a wine bottle. You know, the cap around the wine bottle, sometimes you get foil, this sort of stuff. Just a very thin strip of that and a bit of super glue, and I think it looks okay. When it's painted up, it looked great. I'm going to make a start with this. I'm going to guess he's an officer because he's carrying a sidearm, but it could be a sergeant, I suppose, of some sort. But I'm going to paint him as if he's an officer. I was going to say lieutenant because that's what we say in the UK. A lieutenant, maybe a first lieutenant. Anyway, as you can see, I've sprayed the white from the top in sort of zenith or azimuth or whatever it is called, attempt to do some pre-shading effectively. I'm just going to put a fairly light coat of paint in on the trousers. Here, this is tan earth I'm using, the tan earth that ICM supply. This is the very first time I'm trying this technique. It may not work out for me, in which case I will revert to my tried and tested one of manually putting in the shading and then doing it all myself basically, which kind of works for me in the past, but I thought I'd give this a go. I may not be doing it right. I've watched a few videos, and you know, you watch videos, it's all very good, but you've got to actually try it for yourself. Oh, it's kind of it's kind of all right. It's not very. We just need to let that dry a bit as well. Maybe it's paint's too thin. I don't know. I know you need more than one coat of it, but we'll see how this goes. And then if it don't work out, then I'll go back to my old method of painting. I want to give this a try. I'll do the same thing with some buff on the top here of the jacket tunic, whatever you like to call it, jacket, I guess, because it goes down underneath the belt, and see how we go. So this is now the fourth coat of this, and what I'm beginning to do is just actually apply some just a bit more lightly, so that catches the highlights rather than just washes the entire piece. And it's getting there. I will still probably put in some shading, some darker shading by hand, because I don't know, I think from this, for this scale, it works for me better if I actually put the stuff in myself, only because at this scale I think you need to emphasize things a lot more. I think you need to really push color, you need to push contrast to give the apparent sharpness of detail. So I might just do some shading, but you know, it's not bad. It's not the end of the world. Not a failure of an experiment. I just think maybe I'm just not doing it right as well. that's always a possibility. I think this is coming together nicely though, as a figure. Right, just for now, I'm going to start putting in the webbing using the warm grey that ICM suggests. I'm going to do this because I want to define the edges of the webbing so that I can do some more shading in a little while on the jacket. It also helps me sort of get my ideas of the kind of layout of the piece, really. It's slightly difficult also because the warm grey and the buff aren't too dissimilar. So it's slightly difficult to tell the two apart in a way. But anyway, once the grey goes, the buff goes on again, and we start doing some localized shading, I'm sure it'll look great. So what I'm going to do first of all is just reinforce some of these highlights with buff from the pot, direct from the pot, not diluted at all. And that will help me sort of design where all the bits and pieces are going to go in the shading later. Because these are essentially the highlights, and as I keep telling you, wherever you put highlights, you've got to put shadows. You'll see as it dries, it really sort of blends in quite nicely. It looks very bright to begin with. You think, oh, I've done too much, but you haven't. It will really blend in. So now I've mixed just a bit of black in with the, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of counter shading, some shadowing, counter shading. We're going to start quite gentle with it. Go too dark too quickly. And also just put a little bit of shade beneath some of this webbing, and also the side of the joining the tunic like so. Okay, we can be really, don't be too aggressive with this, because I'll actually just have to paint it out later. It's the first start of the shading. When I was doing sort of bits of graphics and stuff like that for an old company of mine, we used to sort of do cutouts of things, put them on a different background, like plain backgrounds, like products, items. You sort of do shadows, and you always used to put a shadow. Like you've got a box of something. Actually, like if you shoot a box of a kit, for example, you would, you cut it out, put it on a plain background, and then sort of apply a shadow to the background. But what the trick was then to add another shadow, a really small one, right close up to the base of the product. So here, for example, you can put the shadow in and it's fine, but what we'll do later is put a really fine, darker shadow just along there, and that will really pick out and it will look more natural. The same up here. We're going to put a sort of a more sort of generalized dark in there, but then we'll put a really much stronger shadow just in these folds a bit later on. So you may not immediately notice anything changing, but I promise you, we are putting in some color, we're putting in some structure, and of course it dries differently to what you see as well. Okay, so now I'm just going to put some of that darker shadow detail just into these the bits that would look darkest, really. Just helps pull out that 3D look. Yeah. Right, so I'll do a bit of work on the sleeves as well. I'm going to start on the fleshwork. Now, fleshwork is, I think, the worst part of figure painting. Some people really love it. I really don't. Although please do excuse me if there's a bit of noise, like there's a helicopter and there's traffic at the moment, but it's like 35 degrees in my workshop and I've got to have the windows open or the air conditioner on, and the air conditioner makes quite a lot of noise. Whereas every now and again the traffic and the helicopters go away, which is nice. Okay, so we're just going to put this, what I'm doing first is this quite dark coat. This is a base coat. I'll show you the paints I'm using in a moment. Actually, not going to do much work at the back. A thin sort of bit of paint at the back. Okay, that's the face. I'm doing the hands as well. Smoking a cigarette of some description. Okay. That's going to go, and they're going to dry a lot darker than they look. I promise you, they will go a lot darker than this. You can see the face here; it's actually already gone quite dark. Okay, right. So the paints I'm using is from a company called Andrea Color. They're a Spanish company. Mystery Box Nick sent me the set of these. There's 6. Now on each one, there's a shadow, a base, and a light. Now each one's got a first base, second base, first shadow, second shadow, first light, second light. I'm leaving it down to 3 because I think between these 3 I can cover pretty much what I need to do. I haven't sort of checked out how Andrea Colors say to use them. So what I do is I put the base on first, then I put part of the highlights in with the shadow in first, then highlights with the base, and then very small highlights with the light, and then I just get some mix and match, and then just sort of dabble in between them just to give a bit of texture, I guess. But I'll show you how it works anyway. Right, so now we're going in with the flesh base color. This is what the system, the Andrea color system, thinks is like just regular flesh tone. Just going to catch the top of the brows, not very much because they are under shadow. The cheeks, just blend that in and keep it in frame. Okay, let's go a bit lower on this piece here. Because you want that sort of hint of that crease line there, because we can put that in properly later. And on the hands, we're just going to run these highlights for the fingers like so. Okay, don't want to do too much work because the hands are the nastiest, trickiest bits of the whole thing, actually, I think, anyway. It does depend on how well they're moulded. It's pretty good. Anyway, so we go. So we're going to leave that to dry now. Maybe touch up a little bit, just a little bit into that. There we go, like that. Yeah. There we go. It's already starting to take on some character. So we'll let that dry and then we'll put in the top highlight in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to put in a highlight now, just on the cheeks, the nose, the very top of the lip there, top of the chin, and dab their cheeks. Top of the hand as well. Just maybe the top of that finger and that thumb. There we go. You can see that the tones are really working through now, really working well. And just on the lips, I'm going to apply just a tiny amount of I think it's like a black red it's called. There you go. That's it. Yeah. Black red. But a tiny amount. It has to be a really tiny amount, otherwise it'll look made up. This is I have to say, my least favourite bit. Let's put the eyes on now. Well, I don't ever use white for the eyes unless the character is going to be in shadow. The reason being, your eyes aren't actually white. Okay, so it's a tiniest drop into that brown part that we made earlier. You know, with not using the colour on the bases, excuse me. Okay, we just drop some white or some pale colour into that. Not happy with that. Okay, I'm a little bit happier with this one now. Now, I'm not going to bother with colours of eyes and all that. I'm just going to put a tiny black thing. I want him looking down, because I want him looking towards the sergeant who's going to be talking to him. Okay? And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to mess around any more than that, because that is enough, I think. So that's the figure almost done. Just going to chase out the strap here with a bit of shading. Most of that is done. That's yeah, I'm quite happy with most of that. I'm going to put. I need to check whether they had captain's bars on there and on the uniform and on the hat, and the helmet as well. If they did, then I'll put those on. I'll also put sergeant stripes on my sergeant figure, who is this one here, who's actually shouting up to his officer. So I've done then. I've added a divisional patch here. I've added a couple of silver straight bars and little dabs of brass there to make it look like the US symbols, I guess. And just a few dabs of metal here and there, and that's my officer pretty much complete. The sergeant in the same group, sorry, corporal in the same group. I made him a corporal. Again, divisional patch, corporal stripes. It's ready. And there's another figure who's just sort of sitting moping around. He'll have a rifle with him. And of course the driver, who's already in the truck. So there we go. Those are the figures I've painted for the G7107. Just zoom out a bit so you can see them all. There they are. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. And our next thing to do would be to put them in the diorama, of course. There it is then. Relatively straightforward figures to paint. The mouldings were nice. 1/35 is a great scale for doing faces, I find myself, because it's not so large that it really needs a lot of work, but it's large enough that you can add bits of shade and highlights and relatively quickly get a good looking result. Now, if you look really closely, you're going to notice all the flaws. But if you're in a diorama set when you're standing back, they look great. I'm really happy with them. So that's the end of that. Next thing for me to do is to put this lot into a diorama. That's going to be on a video coming up soon. How will you know when that video is going to be out? Well, best things to do. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all of my future content as it arrives. And of course, anything you like on the channel that you see, please do give it the imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope to see you again very soon. Take good care now, and goodbye.